Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Empowerment, a diabetes webinar series. The African American Diabetes Association developed this series in recognition of National Diabetes Awareness Month, and today is the first webinar titled It's Not Your Fault. We chose this topic in response to the knowledge that a lot of people blame themselves for their diabetes diagnosis, and we here at AADA want to emphasize that this challenge is not all your fault. We're very excited that you've all chosen to join us this evening. Before we get started, I did want to cover a couple of things regarding Zoom. If you have any questions or comments throughout our presentation, please feel free to add your questions to the chat. You may also get our attention by selecting the raise hand reaction on the bottom of your screen. We'll also leave time at the end after our speakers finish presenting for Q&A. If for any reason you require this presentation to be captioned, you're able to select show captions at the bottom of your screen, and then in order to turn them off, you can select hide captions. Now I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. First, we'll have Barbara King. She's from Boston, Massachusetts, and she's a highly regarded subject matter expert on the topic of diabetes. She's a type 1 diabetic with 2 beautiful daughters and 4 grandchildren. Barbara's the co-founder and chairwoman of the board at AADA, and she holds a master's in education from Cambridge College in psychology and counseling. We'll also be hearing from Eric Kennedy. He is a 51-year-old lifelong resident of Boston, and he's a former chapter leader of the Boston Guardian Angels. Eric is the author of the book, The Unmasking: Poems and the Thoughts Behind Them. He's currently working on his second book, which will be his first fictional novel. Eric is a type 2 diabetic who recently had some life-threatening health issues, and he had to have a toe amputated due to challenges with his diabetes. He has been helping to educate the Black community and those incarcerated on the dangers of this condition. We'll also hear from Leon Rock. He's from Boston, Massachusetts, and is also a co-founder and CEO of the African American Diabetes Association. He now lives in the Metro Washington, D.C. area with his lovely wife. He has 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters. Leon was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes over 20 years ago, and he's passionate about helping to educate the African American community about diabetes. First, we're going to hear from Barbara King. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Amber, for that wonderful introduction that you've done. And I welcome and I thank all of the viewers and everyone that's come in to hear this first webinars of ours. I appreciate you guys for showing up. And my purpose here today is to ring the alarm on diabetes and to prevent African Americans and other people of color from suffering the way I have with diabetes. It's very important to know the basics about diabetes first. And I'm going to give a brief overview on what diabetes and the type of and the different types of diabetes, the symptoms of some of the symptoms of diabetes and the complications of diabetes. First, I like to just start off with what is diabetes? What is diabetes? I'm a 20-year survivor. I shouldn't say I'm a over 20 years of having diabetes. And sometimes I still get confused about all of this diabetes lingo that they say. And so I am still learning today about my diabetes. Diabetes is a chronic, long-lasting health condition that affects how your body turns food into energy. Your body breaks down most of the food you put into your body, and it turns it into sugar. Oh, I am so sorry. And it turns it into sugar. And it goes into your bloodstream. And when your blood sugar goes up, it signals your pancreas to release insulin. Insulin acts like a key to the blood sugar into your blood, into your body cells for use as energy. And there's a screen up here that shows, and it says, what a healthy pancreas look like, what a type 1 diabetic pancreas does, what a type 2. So when you're looking at this and you're looking at the different types of diabetes, when you have a healthy pancreas, insulin goes in and it turns into glucose and it goes into your bloodstream. And then so it's able to function properly. With type 1 diabetes, the pancreas fails to produce any insulin. I am a type 1 diabetic. My insulin, I don't have a pancreas, but for people that are a type 1 diabetic, some do have a pancreas, but their pancreas does not produce any insulin at all. And so the glucose cannot get into the bloodstream. With type 2 diabetes, insulin is trying to get into, the glucose is trying to get into your bloodstream. And the insulin, it's like, as you see those receptors, you see where there's the insulin receptors, and then you see the glucose. And so it's trying to get into that cell and it fails. And so that's what happens. And you have to, when you look at this and you say the difference between type 1 and type 2, with type 2, you do have a chance of making sure that the insulin and the insulin that turns into glucose is able to get into your bloodstream. So it can be confusing at times, but just know that type 2 can be reversed. So type 2, that type 1, unfortunately, no, we have to take insulin. And normally when you're taking insulin with type 1, you have to take it for the rest of your life. With type 2, it can be reversed. And so with type 1 diabetes, type 1 is to be, it's an autoimmune disease that has a reaction in your body and it attacks itself by mistake. And the reaction stops your body from making any insulin at all. With type 2 diabetes, your body doesn't use insulin well and can't keep blood sugar at normal levels. About 90 to 95% of the people with diabetes have type 2. And with knowing that that a lot of the people that have type 2, that 90 to 95% of them that have type 2, so we got to know that there is a chance that it can be reversed with type 2. And as when I think about it, and I'm looking more and more at type 2 diabetes and seeing that more and more children are or younger youth are coming up with type 2 diabetes. And as I always say, we have to ask ourselves why. And we look at different things that are happening in our society today with the fast foods and the input of the sugar that the young people are putting into their bodies, the sodas, all of that. I always say with my, I bring up an example in my household. I bought a lot of sodas growing up, and my children drank a lot of sodas. So it caused. I had to say to myself, Barbara, is this healthy for them? I needed sugar, but did they need all of that sugar to cause them to have type 2 diabetes? So I'll go into another type of diabetes, and I'm going to move quick with the types. And I will say, if there's anything that you need to get any more information on regarding the types of diabetes, please go to our website. Gestational diabetes. So there's three types of diabetes: types 1, type 2, and type 3, and gestational diabetes. Those are the main types of diabetes that focused on. And gestational diabetes, it develops during pregnancy. And a lot of pregnant women, when they are not eating or they have issues that are around their health, overweight, we need to be careful when it comes to gestational diabetes. So you go in when you have, in order to know if you have gestational diabetes, when you go to the doctors when you're pregnant, and it's between 24 and 28 weeks of pregnancy, you go to the doctors and your doctor is required to do a glucose tolerance test on you. Every pregnant woman should have this done. And so when you have that test done, it will let you know if you have gestational diabetes. And having gestational diabetes could also mean that you're at risk for having type 2 diabetes. Your child is at risk for having type 2 diabetes as they get older in life, and due to the overweight, sometimes the obesity, being a certain age, all of those things can come into effect when you having any kind of diabetes, type 1, type 2, or type 3. You will have some kind of risk factors that come with all of those types of diabetes. Overweight, not being able to exercise, family history of diabetes. With type 2 diabetes, gestational diabetes, a lot of times it's family histories of diabetes. Uh, and so with those of other main types of diabetes, I would like to also go into pre-diabetes. In the United States, 96 million adults, more than 1 in 3 have pre-diabetes. More than 8 in 10 of them don't know that they have it. Pre-diabetes means that your blood sugar levels are higher than normal. So when you go to the doctor and they say to you you're pre-diabetic, all they're telling you is that your sugars are higher than normal, but not high enough to diagnose you or to give you a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. Pre-diabetes raises your risk for type 2 diabetes. Again, pre-diabetes raises your risk for type 2 diabetes. It raises your risk also for heart disease, strokes. But guess what? There's good news. You can prevent or reverse pre-diabetes with lifestyle changes. And also, not only lifestyle changes, but being aware. When you don't know and you don't understand, how can you do lifestyle changes? So and when we talk about lifestyle changes, we're talking about losing weight if you're overweight, eating a healthy diet, getting regular physical activity. Physical activity is important. Just going and walking. If you can't walk, do some little exercises in the house. And that's with any of the diabetes, whether it's type 1, type 2, or gestational, you still should always get some kind of physical activity. Moving is key. And another thing that I like to say, African Americans, Hispanic, Latinos, American Indian, Alaskan Native, some Pacific Islanders, and Asian American people are all at higher risk of having diabetes. That was a quick definition of the different types of diabetes. But I also that's important is going through for me is the diabetes symptoms. If you have any of these following symptoms, please go to the ER, go see your doctor, go get your blood sugar level tested. If you feel that you're urinating more, that you're peeing more, if you're visiting, if you're going to the bathroom more, and most of the time it's a lot at night when you find yourself urinating. If you feel yourself just being very thirsty at times, you're losing weight without trying, You're very hungry. I'm always hungry, but still, I got diabetes, but I'm always still hungry. If you have blurry vision, I have blurry vision, and that's a diabetes symptom, but it's also a complication of diabetes. I have cataracts, I have glaucoma. Those are complications of diabetes. So my blurry vision, it's a diabetes symptom, but it's also one of my complications of diabetes. Having numbness or tingling in your hands or your feet, I have that also. It's a symptom and it's one of my complications of diabetes. I have a spinal stimulator that I just got inputted probably about 2 months ago. And that's to stop the pain that are in my legs, my feet. It's hard to sleep at night. And it's very serious, and that can be prevented. I will say this: I feel for myself, and I know if I would have gotten the proper medical care I would have knew exactly what was happening to my body, I could have prevented, and I'm sorry, but I could have prevented myself from suffering the way that I suffer today. So my goal is to make sure that I come out and I tell anybody, any people of color that I can help, and let them know that they don't have to suffer with this. It can be prevented, but you have to, it needs to be caught immediately so you can get the proper care. Other symptoms: feeling very tired. When you just feel like, you know what, I'm getting enough rest, but why? Why am I still feeling so tired? I'm just tired. I don't know why. I'm getting sleep. I'm getting up. I'm going to work. I'm coming home. I'm getting rest, but I'm still tired. Go to the doctors. Having dry skin is another thing. I always say we as African Americans, or people of colors, we sure believe in our family members' remedies, or our mothers, because my mother will say, do this, take this, and you'll feel better. When we had a sore, I went to the cabinet when my kids got a sore. I got Neosporin or high or peroxide, and I will put it on them. But diabetics, or you don't know if you have diabetes, you cannot go and just put peroxide on a sore or Neosporin and think it's going to heal, because it's not going to heal. Sores are very difficult to heal. And that's another reason why they tell us diabetics don't walk around barefooted, because if you cut your feet, you might not know. And the next thing you know, you're losing a limb, you're losing something. And so it's very important that, because infection for diabetics is very hard to treat. When a diabetic gets an infection, I tell you, it's very hard to treat. And so I talked about some of the symptoms of diabetes and gestational type 2 and type 1. And as I said, please visit our website. Go to the African American Diabetes. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram. Please go and get this information. I didn't give the full description, but please, you can go look this up. And if you don't want to look it up, we are here to give you that information. I am here. I am here to support you guys, because I don't want to see anybody go through what I have went through and what I still go through. I before we had this meeting, I said, I don't know if anyone noticed the different in my the shape in my face, and it's because of the diabetes. I had TMJ because of diabetes, and I had to have a total jaw replacement. And so, with having diabetes has been very life challenging for me, but it makes me feel good to be able to come on these kind of platforms and try to prevent anyone from going through what I went through. And if I can be any support for anyone, I am here for you. I am here to ring the alarm on diabetes. And that's, I thank you guys for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Eric because I know we are short on time. And I'll turn it over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I want to thank the AADA for inviting me to be a part of this panel because I find that this information that we are giving is very vital to African Americans, Black and Brown people, and as well as those incarcerated. So you mentioned something about type 2 diabetes being reversed. And I have experienced that, because when I was younger, I had type 2 diabetes, but I did what I needed to do, lost the weight, exercised, ate right. And for years, I was fine. This past April, like you said, one of the symptoms is being very tired. And I chalked that up to my work schedule because I worked a lot of hours, long days, and I was just really tired, but not my normal tired because I know myself to be tired, but this was beyond that. And so one day I decided to go to the hospital and, and get it checked out and found out that diabetes had came back, but came back with a vengeance. I had an infection going through my body because, like you said, I had cut myself on my foot and didn't know about it. And then I had an infection that went through my body. And my doctor literally said if I would have waited one more day, he'd be going to my funeral. So I had a toe amputated and, I was in the hospital for a while, laid up for a while, but I, again, continued doing what I was doing. I couldn't exercise as much, but I still did what I could with exercising and still eat the right things and took some, the insulin once a week that I had to take, some glucose health supplements and stuff. And I'm up and running again, thank God. But today's topic is about, it's not your fault. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why, or why would someone say it's not your fault? Because it's your body, you choose. And I'm glad you think that, it's your choice because there is something that you can't choose, and that's your genetics. So genetics isn't your choice. And diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes, is largely influenced by genetics. So it's critical to understand that genetics is an inborn trait. Okay, due to common genetics variables, your risk may be increased by if you have a family member who had diabetes, but also blaming your family or yourself for these genetic connections, however, is unjustified and counterproductive. So you can't blame yourself for being a part of a family that had a history of diabetes. So again, you can't blame yourself. If you don't have the knowledge, if you don't have the wherewithal to live a lifestyle that would prevent you from getting it in the first place, and that includes your environment. So the environmental factor is beyond your control as well. Diabetes is largely influenced by environmental variables as well, especially in the African American population, where there are profoundly ingrained in society concerns and frequent outside the individual's control. You have systematic inequities that restrict access to safe locations or for physical activities. So if you live in a neighborhood where you don't feel safe to go out jogging or exercising, then you're not going to. And you just sit in the house and watch TV and you eat what you eat and you gain your weight and stuff like that. So that part is in your control, but it's outside your control because you live in that neighborhood where you don't feel safe to go outside and exercise. And you can say, okay, then go to the gym. If you live in that same community, you don't have the money to go to the gym. There's your financial thing that you, again, don't have control over because the African American community, Black and brown communities, typically don't get paid what our white counterparts get paid. So even if we do have a job, that money is going to pay rent. That money is going to pay, your food, your light bills and stuff. You don't have no extra money to go pay for a gym membership. So now you have two variables that's not in your favor: the fact that you don't have the money to get a gym membership, and the fact that you are living in a community where if you go outside to exercise, you have the risk of getting shot or getting into some kind of altercation. So again, those are not your fault. Okay. So lifestyle choices and complex interactions. Lifestyle decisions have a major impact on the onset of type 2 diabetes because they include complex interactions of personal, environmental, socioeconomical factors. Although nutrition and exercise has a major role, it is important to understand the larger picture. People decisions about health and influence by a variety of factors include what I already said: social and economic situations, community resources, education, which is a huge part of it, and the access to healthcare. And the food desert. And I call it the food desert is because, again, your financial situation, if you're on, Medicaid, if you're on, food stamps and stuff like that, you have to spend that wisely. And most of the time in the Black and brown communities, what spending that food stamps and stuff on is wisely is something you can get plenty of that will sustain a larger family. So it's not usually the healthier stuff. And again, it's not your fault. And I have to keep iterating that because there are so many of us who get diabetes and be like, you know what, I should have did this, I should have did this, and that only perpetuates the cycle of illnesses because now you're just worried about what you should have, could have, would have did, but you didn't, and you're causing more stress on yourself, and that stress isn't good for you because you stress eat, and you usually stress eat not the healthy stuff. You don't go stress eat a salad. You're in that bag of chips or that ice cream. So stressing over the fact that you have it isn't going to help you. Dealing with it will help you. Acknowledging that you have it helps you. But you have to start dealing with it and accepting it and dealing with it and doing what you're the need to do to, if you're type 2, to control it and possibly reverse it. If you're type 1, you have to come to the realization that this is something you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. But you can't stress over it. You acknowledge it and deal with it. You may not be able to get over it, but you can get through it, just like we got through COVID, because we're strong people. And that's how we do things. So it's important, again, to know that there are things that are out of our circumstances. And again, if you don't have the knowledge, you won't know these things. And that's why I encourage you to subscribe to any social media thing that AADD has. Give them a call, email them, get the information, because you're not going to get it from our white counterparts because they aren't us. Our white counterparts deal with it a little differently than we do. And they have some, and I'm not saying all of them, because there are some of our white counterparts that are in the same situation as we are. They're on food stamps and stuff like that, and stuff like that. But the majority of our white counterparts have it made to where they can eat nutritional foods, have their personal chefs. And I can say that because I was a personal chef for a long time for a lot of these families. So how do we move forward? Solutions, not blame, like I said before, should be the center of our attention. Let us focus on controlling and even preventing diabetes. Here's a few doable actions. Education. The power to know, discover more about diabetes, be aware of your risk factors, and collaborate with medical specialists to develop a customized care strategy. Talk to your doctors. And if you don't like your doctor, ask for a Black doctor. You know, they're out there. You just have to, advocate for yourself because no one else will. Um, Healthy eating. Barbara mentioned this as well. Choosing a diet of high fruits and vegetables. And there are certain fruits you shouldn't be eating. And I love grapes, but grapes are really bad for diabetics because they're like peasants. You just pop those and you don't realize how many you're eating, then the whole bag is gone. So grapes aren't really good for diabetics, but there are fruits that are really good for diabetics. And again, educate yourself on that. Vegetables, whole grains, that is well balanced. Stay away from the rice. Brown rice is good. White rice isn't. I know we all love potatoes. Try to stay away from those if you can. And again, you don't have to completely get rid of it, but moderately, you know, one less scoop, you know. So this will support in maintaining a healthy weight and regulating blood sugar levels. Then we have physical activities, making regular exercise a part of your everyday schedule. When I was first losing my weight, I had injured my leg, so I couldn't do a lot of calisthenics and stuff like that. But what I did was I walked around Castle Island. If you're not from Boston, you don't know where Castle Island is. It's in South Boston, and it's like this old fort, and it's a 2.5 mile, 2.5 mile walk around. And I did that every single day for 8 months, whether it was raining, snowing, it was hot out. I did it faithfully, and that's what you have to do. I mean, you don't have to get a gym membership. If you live on the third floor, stop taking the elevator, take the stairs. You know, those are the little things you can do to exercise to keep your rhythm up, your heartbeat up, and get that daily steps in. Frequent examinations is important. And for some reason, especially us Black men, I don't know what it is, but we don't like hospitals. So telling you to go to the hospital frequently, man, that's almost like, cursing at you almost. But I have to say that's something we have to do. And I thank God for giving me the discernment to know that when I wasn't feeling well and I knew my body, because we all know our bodies, and you have to listen to it. And I'm glad I listened to mine enough to know that when he had said, hey, we're not feeling well, and I went to the doctors, and I'm glad I did because I would not be here with you today. And lastly, community engagement. I'm glad you're all on here today, but don't let this be the last webinar you get. I saw the whole month, every Wednesday, there's going to be stuff on here. So make sure you're back every Wednesday to get that education. And don't just get the education for yourself, share it. Wisdom is only as good as the people we share it with. So don't hoard it for yourself. Tell your neighbors, tell your children, tell your grandchildren. And then invite them to join these webinars as well. And then be a part of AADA somehow. They do the events all over the place and they're always looking for volunteers and stuff. So if you have some free time, look up the website and see if they have an event in your area and see if you're willing to can volunteer and ask to be a part of it. So that's my talk on why it's not our fault, and I hope you truly believe that. And it is my pleasure to pass this on to Leon Rock.
Wow. All I can do is say, wow. How do I follow that? And then how do I follow Barbara? And then how do I follow my dear friend? Come on now. I can't. And by the way, listen, Amber, you are amazing. Thank you very much for what you do. And thank you, Eric, and thank you, Barbara. And guess what? I learned something. And by the way, I learned something every day. If we're alive, we have to learn something every day. And in the presentation that both Barbara and my dear friend Eric explained, one of the things I just learned from Eric was, guess what? Those grapes. And by the way, I be popping those grapes, bang, 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 bang. And guess what? It's not good for me. So I'm going to lay off on those grapes. And Angela, who always buys me grapes, well, guess what? I guess she's going to lessen the amount of grapes that I get, because I was wondering, why is my sugar level going up every time I eat a grape? It's because of that. Thank you, Eric. And I know you have to go. You have a short time. And if you don't mind, I'm not going to talk right now about what I was going to talk about, because there may be questions for Eric before he leaves. And then after that, I will continue with my conversation about it's not your fault. So, Eric, let's take some questions that Eric might
Okay.
get from folks that are listening or from our dear friend.
And feel free, there's nothing off limits. If you want to know the challenges I had to go through after having a toe amputated, it, that was not fun. But again, we're strong people, and I made it through it. And I want to thank Leon and Bobber for being there as my support system when I was going through that. And so, yeah, if you have any questions, please ask.
And if not at this time, oh, by the way, put it in the chat room. But if not at this time, Eric has put in the chat room as well his email address. And I guess.
So there was a question that, Eric, what made you go to the hot doctors exactly? You know what? I'm a Christian, and I'm not, ashamed to say that. It was this Holy Spirit, God. God said, "Hey," because I'm not a hospital guy either, and just to back up a little bit, my pain tolerance is almost superhuman. So I don't feel pain like normal people do. And so, yeah, I injured my foot, but I didn't even know my foot was injured. And so when I was tired, like I said before, it wasn't the normal tired. I get tired just like everybody else, but this was just like Barbara said before, like extremely like, I'm falling asleep at work tired. I was at the point where I couldn't even drive home. So when I woke up and I felt that same way, I was like, okay, I'm not going to work today. Something tells me, hey, you need to go to the hospital. So I went to the emergency room. And a good thing that my primary care doctor is a member of BMC, because he got the alert that I was at the emergency room. And he knows that if I'm at the emergency room, it's something serious. So he came over, brought me right upstairs, did the test, and came back to the room and said, "You're not going home." And so that's how I found out that I had the infection that was ravaging my body. What did your support system look like before and after? Passion, thank you for that question. What did my support? Well, you know what? It's crazy because when I had diabetes before, there wasn't really a support system because AADA wasn't around then. So I didn't really have a support system. I had to rely on what my doctors told me, and they didn't tell me much. They just told me to lose weight and eat right. But there's a lot more to it than that. And I'm going to share this story with you, and Barbara and some of the people that are on here have heard it before. When I was incarcerated, it was my first time ever being incarcerated, and I was ashamed, and I was depressed, and I had diabetes, and they were taking care of me. They were making sure I was taking my insulin. And I got depressed so badly that, I said, I'm too much of a coward to commit suicide that way. So I'm going to let diabetes take care of me. So I stopped taking my insulin. I stopped taking my metformin. And I said, okay, I didn't eat right and stuff like that. And I said, okay, so one day I'm just going to go to sleep and not wake up. That never happened. I woke up every single day and I was so mad. And so a year went by. Again, I haven't taken anything for a year. So the nurse, the head of the nursing department, came up to me to my cell and said, Eric, I haven't seen you for a year. Can you at least do me a favor and let us check your A1C? I said, okay. So I did that. And a few days later, she comes back to me. She goes, you want to know something? She goes, your A1Cs are fine. And I said, what? And she goes, that's what I'm saying. She goes, you don't have diabetes right now. Like, and I was just floored. I was just like, here I am. And I'm just like, I'm excited and upset at the same time. And you'll understand that if you knew me better, but going through my life, I tried to commit suicide 3 times, and this would have been the 4th time if it succeeded. And it's funny because I do talks all over, and people will ask me, because I do a lot of things. I cook, I do magic, I do this, and people will say, "Is there anything you're not good at?" And I'll jokingly say, "Committing suicide." And I can joke about it now. I know suicide's a serious thing, but I'm just glad that God has plans for me, and I'm starting to figure out what those plans are. And I'm just glad to be here to be able to share this with you guys.
Amen to that, Eric Kennedy. Wow. Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And by the way, we are glad that you were not successful and have never been successful at that attempt. We are
Right.
so glad.
Yeah,
We
same here.
thank God for that, for sure.
Eric, may
Pastor,
I ask
you're
you a
very
question?
welcome. Yes,
May I
you
ask you,
can.
uh, my name is Anthony Banks. I'm one of the members of AADA. And first of all, I want to thank you for spending your time and availing us of your experience and your wisdom and your knowledge regarding the journey that you're on. This kind of testimony, and I do consider it a testimony, is,
Absolutely.
is needed and it should be shared more often with members of our community. Because I'm sure there are some who have similar testimonies, and there's some who would be inspired by what you have to say and what you went through. I just wanted to get you a quick opinion of the popular glucose monitoring methods that are being employed today. Do you think that that's one way that we could try and get people to be more responsible and responsive to the fact of trying to get them to be more aware of their glucose levels and these new methods that they've developed, kind of make it easier because they can eliminate the necessity for sticking one's finger or drawing blood from their body in some other way like that is often very painful and or cumbersome and or annoying. What is your opinion of these new methods?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I don't have to. I take insulin once a week, so I don't have to stick my finger a lot. And believe it or not, they actually offered me the monitor that would stay on, but then the pharmacist, the diabetic counselor at BMC offered that to me, but my pharmacist said I don't need it because I'm not taking insulin every day. But yeah, definitely, if that's an option, and again, you have to advocate for yourself. I was lucky enough that they offered it to me, but if they don't offer it to you or your loved ones, you have to advocate for yourself and say, hey, what about this? Because if they know you're knowledgeable about it, they can't hide it from you.
Right. I agree. I understand. I think you're absolutely right in that regard.
Mm-hmm. But I do a lot of conferences, planning conferences, and a lot of them are in the medical field. And I'm working a lot with these organizations that run out of the UK. And there's some things coming down the pike that I can't disclose because I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. But there's some amazing things happening within the diabetic world. So just keep a lookout for them. And as I'm able to disclose, I will let AADA know so they can pass the word along as well.
Awesome, awesome. One last question is, first of all, I share my brother Rock's uh, consternation regarding the grapes. I love grapes myself, and I try and eat them in moderation. And I not only love the grapes themselves, but I often like the juice that comes from the grapes. If you catch my drift. But uh, I've often asked or uh, suggested to people that I run into about the need for moderation in with regard to their diets and mixing. You know, you were right when you talked about, you know, we as poor people we have to usually eat the kind of foods that are readily accessible to us, and in a lot of places we do. Lots of our communities do live in what you termed as food deserts. In other words, areas that don't have um, supermarkets that are just that supermarkets that have a variety of mixed fresh fruits and vegetables, um, and they're usually either far away or they're just not accessible. So we end up eating a lot of the foods that we normally eat: the starches, the potatoes, the things that are cheap and easily accessible to us.
And those are the same foods that they feed prisoners too. So
Exactly,
no wonder
exactly,
that people come out of prison or jail and they have diabetes when they didn't have
exactly.
health.
You're exactly right. So one of the things I always try and get people to think about is mixing their diet. You know, we just don't. It's hard to eliminate those things from your diet altogether because those foods are staples to some people. Um, but we try. I always try and advocate people to mix up their diet more to make it more diverse. You know, I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to eat a potato or rice or anything once in a while, but you should try and there are lots of other things out there that you can eat and
Right.
that are beneficial to you. And we just have to try and educate our community to the various other kinds of vegetables and products that are out there that are uh, nutritionally good for us, but we just don't eat on a regular basis.
Right.
So it's a struggle because, and again, a lot of that, as you said, comes down to, where we shop and being able to access the places that have those variety of different kinds of vegetables and fruits, and then, incorporating them into our normal menus and our diets.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Anthony. I think Nathan has a question, and then after that, I need to go. Nathan?
Yes, sir.
Nathaniel?
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
Yes, sir. Nathan is fine. Nate, they call me Nate. But yeah, I was listening to you, and it was good to hear everybody. Because I went through all them symptoms that I heard tonight. You know what I'm saying? That especially the tingling in the hands and the tingling in the feet, and I had I was on Jadarian. I was on metformin, and now
Mm-hmm.
they didn't gave me a new one now. It begins with a J, something like Jabana, yeah, something like that. They was also trying to
Mm-hmm.
give me this one called Trelocity. And I told them I'm not gonna
Trulicity.
stick
Yep.
myself. Yeah, I said I'm not gonna stick myself, so you can
I
cancel
have
that order.
that's what I'm on, the Trulicity, but that's a once a week thing.
Right, right. So I told him I ain't good with needles and I'm not doing it. So he put me on the new one that begins with JAVNA, something like that, again, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So, but all the symptoms of, you know, uh the sweats I lost weight. I was 185 pounds and I went from 185 pounds to 157.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know what was going on because I lost the taste in my mouth. Anything that was cooked, like meat or anything, the smell was awful, and I just didn't have that energy that you all was talking about. So I was slumping around and dragging around because I got this thing on my house called the ring, and I was watching myself because I had went back to because I was trying to find something that was in the yard, and I went back and I seen myself out there, and it seemed like I was an old man. I'm 66. I'll be 67 this month, but it seemed like I was an old man. I said, "Dang, you
Mm-hmm.
look old." You know what I'm saying? Walking around the way you walk right now, because I'm an active person. I get up every day and either clean my yard, clean my cars, or whatever the case may be. But I just wasn't feeling good at all. So when I went, I'm from Boston as well, but I'm down here in Maryland now. So I was gonna
Mm-hmm.
go back I was a 0.8. I was 8 on the Richter scale of the A1C. So she already had told me that I need to change what I'm doing because I can get it down to under, under 7. It can go anywhere between 6.9 or 6.7.
Mhm.
I can do it when I want to. But when since sugar is for me is like a drug. You know what I mean? And if you
Right.
don't do the
Yep.
sugar, you're gonna do the salt. So that means it's the potato chips, the popcorn, the other stuff that you try to substitute one from the other, and that's what kills you too. But I was
Mhm.
also on the grapes. I was eating grapes, going crazy, and watermelon. And people, because people would tell you
Watermelon's
watermelon is
actually
good.
not that bad for you. The other
Right.
main fruit that you
Hmm.
need to stay away from that I love as well is mangoes.
Right. I don't eat mangoes because I know about the mangoes. But the
Yeah.
watermelon, I was eating yellow watermelons and I was eating the red watermelons. And I was eating them like all the time. And you
Mhm.
can't eat it because even though it's good for you, it's just you can't eat. Right? If we talk about moderation, you can't eat it
Moderation.
all
Exactly.
the time. You know what I'm saying? So I thought it was the watermelon, the yellow watermelon anyway, because I got down here and I never seen yellow. So I said, oh wow. So it tasted good. But I was on it and on it. I'm not gonna drag this on. But I had to go to the doctor because I had waited.
Mhm.
Everybody was saying go to the doctor, Nate. And I had waited almost 3 weeks and 4 days before I went in. I went in, I had urinary tract, I had all kind of stuff going on. My sugar was over here. He said your kidneys might start to fail and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
So, and my doctor's at BMC. And I was gonna wait to get there next Friday because next Friday was my doctor's appointment. And I left Boston in May. And
Right.
this happened about 3 months ago. And I was trying to wait to get to my doctor's appointment. And somebody said, man, I said, because I
Right.
felt so sluggish, I
Mhm.
was suggested my wife said, you need to go to the hospital. So I actually got up and we went. And like you said, right in the nicker of time. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Because I don't know what would have been happening if I had not went. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mhm.
it was everything just seemed like it was going to downhill from that point. So now, luckily that I found whoever found me on this African American Diabetes Association. I'm glad you because I'm interested. You know what I mean? Because
Nice.
I
Good.
know I got people that want to help me to tell me I drink lemon water every morning. I'm on my
Mhm.
bike. I'm on my bike at 8:30 and I ride for an hour, a half hour out, half hour back. You know what I'm saying? And I do all the exercises because that's the way I usually do things. I'm either detailing cars, washing, doing the yard work or whatever. I'm always moving. But when I wasn't doing that no more, I was just moping around like I was, I thought because when you turn 66, is this the time you get old? And it's now the it kicks in. So, but then I got people that's older than me that's doing very well. And those are the
Right.
people that's trying to help me with this nutrition. So, that's
Mhm.
what I wanted to say. But thank you all, for inviting me. And I'll be here to listen, man, because if they say listen to learn and learn to listen, you know what I mean?
Right. That's
So
why we
thank
have
y'all, man.
two ears and one mouth, right?
That's right.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Nathan, thank you very much. And thank you all for your questions. And I have to go, but I will see you at the next webinar. God bless you all.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. We
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank
you
you,
as well.
Eric. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
Eric.
guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and comments. They were all super informative. And now we'll continue on with the presentations. Leon will go ahead and present now.
Wow. How do I follow after Eric? And by the way, those were some phenomenal questions. And I want to follow up with some of what was talked about by Eric as he talked about it's not your fault. First off, again, I want to thank Amber for her amazing conversation and presentation, actually saying who I am and what I've been doing over the past couple of years. And actually, as well, I want to thank Barbara and Eric for sharing their experience and the work that they have committed to do with regards to diabetes. But today as well, I want to talk about diabetes and the African American community and how it is not your fault. When I say it's not your fault, it's not your fault that you actually have diabetes. And I'm going to go into some detail on how I believe it's not your fault. Here's the facts, my good friends. The fact is that African Americans in the United States experience, in many ways, inequities in diabetes treatment. And that's why it's not your fault. Yep, these inequities lead to essentially poorer health outcomes. These inequities also cause and I would call it a complex interplay between, yes, factors like structural racism. Yeah, what am I talking about when I'm talking about structural racism? The fact is that African Americans are more likely to live in poverty, as Eric mentioned, have less access to the quality of health care, and experience, in many ways, a level of discrimination in the healthcare system that is second to none. These factors can make it difficult. Actually, let's not say can make it difficult, does make it difficult, for African Americans to get the proper care that we deserve and need. There's more facts, my good friends. There's a lack of diversity in clinical trials. Clinical trials of diabetes treatment opportunities have historically, let me get that one right, say it again 3 times, historically underrepresented by African Americans. This means that there may be less evidence to support the use of certain treatments for African Americans. There's more. Here's the facts. I'm just bringing you the facts, my good friends. Cultural and social economic barriers also impact, how treatment happens with African Americans. African Americans face cultural and social economic barriers to diabetes care. Lack of transportation, childcare, language access. And what am I saying with language access? Everybody that is African American in this country doesn't necessarily speak English. Some people have English as a second language. Yeah, that's a fact. More likely to be challenged with language access, my good friends. And by the way, they are more likely, or we're more likely, to experience diabetes complications. And Eric mentioned it already, as did Barbara. Heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, blindness, neuropathy, all those things that actually, if you put Eric, myself, and Barbara into the same room, we have had all of those complications and more. We are more likely to die from diabetes complications. That's a fact. And actually, no one dies of diabetes. I'm going to say it again. Nobody dies of diabetes. You die from complications of diabetes. So when you hear Black folks dying of heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, and actually going blind, generally speaking, it's because of diabetes or smoking for those that have heart disease. but generally speaking, it's complications to diabetes. It's not our fault, my good friends. African Americans are also less likely to receive recommended diabetes care, such as hemoglobin A1C testing or monitoring our blood sugar control. It's not our fault, my good friends. Yeah, we don't get the annual cholesterol screenings that we should get. We don't get the examinations to detect diabetic retinopathy in the eye as we should. There's more. Oh, do I sound like I'm a little peeved? Fact is, I am. Why am I peeved? Because it's not our fault. African Americans are also less likely to receive, yes, newer forms and most effective forms of medications. This is due to a number of factors, including the cost and the lack of insurance and provider bias. I'm talking because guess what? This has to stop. Racism in diabetes care, yep, is a complex and multifaceted issue, my good friends, and it can be manifested in a variety of ways. The fact is, African Americans with diabetes may be treated differently by healthcare providers than, yes, our white American counterparts. Fact is that we get denied care. We are given lower quality of care, and we are treated in many ways in the emergency rooms across America with a certain level of disrespect. Actually, it's not just in emergency rooms. Physicians and doctors have tended to not give us the respect that we deserve. And by the way, that data is in, my good friends. Healthcare providers may have, in many ways, implicit biases about African Americans with diabetes, which may lead to poor decisions about, yes, our care. Let me give you an example. A healthcare provider may assume that an African American patient is less likely to be compliant with their medication regimen, which will lead them to receiving less support. There is a challenge in the lack of cultural competency, my good friends. Healthcare providers may not actually be culturally competent in caring for Black folks. And that's a fact. Actually, I can tell you, I could go into my own experiences in my hometown of Boston and here in Maryland about the challenges that I faced in communicating, with my doctor, and my doctor actually having a lack of communication skills to effectively address my issues and other African Americans. The fact is, my good friends, that racism, culturally specific racism, that structural racism, is impacting the African American community. Racism in diabetes care can have significant impact on the health and well-being of African Americans with diabetes. It can lead essentially to a problem with poorer blood sugar control, more complications with diabetes, and a high risk of death. This is in many ways why Barbara, my wife Angela, Robin Hayes, Kyla Desire, Brooke Payne, and so many of the other incorporating board members established the African American Diabetes Association. I am appreciative of what they have done to come together as we ring the alarm on the epidemic of diabetes in the African American communities of America. We are working to address racism in diabetes care. That means educating healthcare providers about their racism and its impact on diabetes care, promoting culturally competent healthcare settings, essentially culturally competent healthcare opportunities where doctors learn and nurses learn and healthcare professionals learn about their own structural racism. Yeah. But addressing structural racism in itself is not for the faint of heart. I know in my conversation today, some people might have gotten a little jittery around the issue of addressing racism. But as I said, it's not for the faint of heart. We need to address structural racism that contributes to the inequities of diabetes care. This includes access to quality health care for all Americans, investing in the Black community and other communities of color to dismantle every form of racism in our society. By taking these steps, we can create a healthcare system that is more equitable and just for all Americans. That's what I think, and I could be right. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much for your presentation, Barbara, you as well. I agree. There's a comment in the chat section saying that this webinar is gold. I agree. I've learned a lot myself, and I feel invigorated to join the fight with everybody. So now we'll open the floor to the questions and comments, if anybody has any.
I'd like to ask Brother Rock, Leon, what do you think is the single most important determinant of why Black people and minority people suffer from the symptoms of diabetes?
Yeah, I think in many ways it depends on the type of diabetes, type 1 or type 2. If you're talking about type 2 diabetes specifically, excuse me, I would say that the challenge of, as Eric had mentioned and as Barbara has mentioned, is that we live, most of the African American communities across America are not moderate income, but it are low income. And we live in essentially in Black communities, food deserts. And because we live in food deserts and we're not taught at an early age, we don't have nutritionalists in the African American community by and large. So if we have food deserts, meaning no places to buy healthy foods, and we don't have nutritionalists to help us and guide us with regards to healthy eating, we eat unhealthy. And so when we eat unhealthy and we have this whole experience, this life experience of how we eat foods, and it goes back in many ways to our history in slavery, we have this challenge of the foods that we eat. Oh, the macaroni and cheese. Who doesn't want some mac and cheese? And by the way, What is mac and cheese? It's full of carbohydrates. And who doesn't like that cornbread? Got to have some cornbread. And by the way, carbs and cornbread. Oh, by the way, can you pass me one of those dinner rolls? And what's in those dinner rolls? Oh, and by the way, you got the sweet tea. And who doesn't like sweet tea? So we're eating all this stuff, and it's impacting on our health. We become, and by the way, I got insulted when the doctor told me I was obese. But the reality was I was. And so I'm sucking up all this food. And guess what? That diabetes, that ability to process that blood, the sugars is impacting on you. And so I would say obesity is the challenge. And by the way, we've been set up in the African American community, as I said before, because if we have the food deserts, it's in many ways, there's a conspiracy. And I could be wrong, but I'm going to listen. That's my answer, Anthony. And it wasn't short.
Thank you. I mean, I believe much of what you said is extremely true. You know, we're a people who have we're peculiar people who've had a very peculiar history in this country, and we have survived nonetheless. But you know, it's taken its toll on us as a people, and it's taken its toll on our health in general. I hope, it is my hope and desire that we will, as a people, one day be able to say that our health generally is improved over what it used to be during our times, and I think that's what this organization needs to strive towards. That we can make the knowledge available to people that will, in effect, improve their health and improve their ability to manage their health and to be able to make themselves available of the various developments and the technologies that are emerging that will help us to become healthier and better. No one is taking on that challenge, but organizations like this organization, and unless they're doing it for a profit. And so it's important that organizations like this one continue to do the work and to raise the banner and shout from the rooftops about the necessity for folks to pay attention to the issues that we speak about. So I thank you, my brother, for being that spokesperson. I thank Barbara for being so transparent and willing to share her experiences, so that all may hear and see that they're not alone out there, that there are other people going through those kinds of situations. Barbara is not going through her situation in a vacuum. There are, for every Barbara, there's probably 10,000 other ones who just don't have the voice and the stage that Barbara's been afforded to be able to share her experiences and to try and educate people along the way. So thank you all for your sacrifice and your courage to be transparent and to be out there for people to see and hear your testimonies.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you,
Very
Anthony.
much.
Thank you. Leslie, I see your hand.
Yes, I just wanted to really make a statement. What has always caused irate caused me to be irate is in the Black communities, how that they put up stores the liquor stores, and they're full of things to attract us for unhealthy eating. Um, when I was younger, had stopped going to them a long time ago, but I understand everybody doesn't have the same type of access. And now what's in our communities, and you don't find them in the white communities as prevalent as they are in the Black communities, with all these fast food restaurants, and they're supersizing, and where you can get value meals of a lot of unhealthy food. So it's just a vicious cycle. They put that in our communities, and then the healthcare profit on it, because then you're getting a lot more sick people who have to go to the doctor's offices or not. And it's just a travesty. And like Leon said, I do this. I believe the same, that it's almost like a conspiracy. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you so much for your comment. That definitely plays into what both Eric and Leon spoke about food deserts. The unhealthy food is saturated in our communities and not so much the healthier options.
That is so true, and I want to thank Leslie for her statement, because that was a very keen observation that she made. I remember going into a store, and our communities are saturated with little mom and pop stores, and not to come down on mom and pop stores. They represent certain economic opportunities for those folks who are able to get those stores together. But what I was struck by when I went into one particular store, one part of the community, and I went to the cold drink cooler that they had, and I just looked, and every drink they had was a very heavily sugared drink. There was no options at all. I mean, literally no options at all for diabetic drinks or drinks that were more healthy, or even I mean, I think they had one can of a Diet Coke and one can of maybe it was Coca-Cola, but other than that, it was all very high glucose drinks. And I asked the guy, I said, why don't you have more options here? I mean, I said, you're in this community, and diabetes and sugar, high glucose runs rampant in this community. So it would seem to me you would have more options here if you cared about the people in this community. You'd have more options in here for people to have to drink and to eat than just this high glucose, high sugar content drinks and things that you're offering. And who's drinking a lot of that stuff? Our children, our kids, because they come in and they're certainly not gonna, they're gonna go for the stuff that they've always been used to drinking, that high sugar content drinks and that kind of thing. So at some level, at some point, maybe we need to talk about or think about, doing quick surveys of some of the community stores and asking the owners of those stores to be more responsible to the needs of the communities, and offering more of a variety of options for people to take advantage of.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point. We definitely should survey the community and see how everyone feels about the lack of options that we have. Robin, I see your hand as well.
Yes, hi, I'm Robin. I'm Kyla Desiree's mother. Been involved with her diabetes for the last 21 years. She was a diabetic at the age of 6. She's a type 2. I just wanted to kind of touch a little bit upon and kind of add to what my good friend Rock was saying. I want to also add about, I would like to say management is really key, and some management is better than no management. And when I say that, I'm really saying it's hard for somebody to make a change, even if it's life changing to make a change. You know, I think if we were to like kind of understand that and I'm speaking about type 2, where you have no insulin at all producing in your pancreas, which if you were to do carb counting, I just wanted to add carb counting. If you were to teach individuals on how to carb count anything you put in your mouth, everything has sugar, except with the exception, I think, maybe of water. Anything that you put, even healthy things you put in your mouth, have sugar. So if you were to carb count, and your carb counting is you doing the mathematics of how many carbs you're putting in and how much insulin you would have to draw to act to kind of control of the food that you're intaking. So let's say if you were having spaghetti, which we know pasta is really relatively not good for diabetics or in general because of the high carb counting. But if you were to say that you were going to have a plate of spaghetti and you were and that's your favorite, you shouldn't be deprived of it, but you could also be able to carb count. So therefore you do your corrections and allocate the amount of insulin to cover that. So I know it's hard because, like I said, I've been dealing with Kyla and her diabetes for going on 21 years. So, and she's the youngest of my 4 children. So it was hard with having children in the house and they can eat the snacks and she couldn't. She always had her own snacks though. I always got, which also come to find out back then, I didn't know. I thought as a parent, I didn't want her to feel different. So if I would get them popsicles, I would get sugar-free popsicles. If I was to get them ice cream, I would get sugar-free ice cream. So she wouldn't feel any different. But the some of the ingredients in that also weren't good for you, but then I had to kind of educate myself and say, okay, she would go be invited to parties and couldn't understand like why she couldn't have any, like the cupcakes or things like that. So I said to myself, I didn't want her to feel any different. So I let her have it, but then I did correction. So I gave her enough insulin to cover it. So that's how I kind of like got through it. But I just want to emphasize carb counting. That's very important because it's hard for people to make a change when they're not used to, even if it's life changing, it's hard to make that change, instantly. So I think if carb counting and you have in your mind set of I can eat this, but I'm going to do a correction factor and cover that, and then kind of also educate and say that you can't. I mean, it's good to do that, but it's also kind of good to get on the healthy track. That's all I wanted to say.
Yes, thank you for that comment. And we'll touch on actually diabetes management in the next webinar. So everybody make sure you attend that one as well. Passion, did you have a quick comment or question before we wrap up?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for having this webinar. It has been definitely a blessing for me tonight. I just wanted to just add to the, I believe it was Mr. Rock that mentioned about being your own advocate at the doctor's office, and that is so true. Like since being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I really had to advocate for what I needed from my doctors. I went to my endocrinologist, and pretty much over the few years that I've been with this one, she would like prescribe different medications, and I would always say, I really don't like taking a lot of medicines. I want to try to do it, like the most natural way as I can, like losing weight, making lifestyle changes, and everything. And this particular appointment, she offered a medication, and my husband and I, he came with me because he comes to help take notes and everything during the appointments. And she felt challenged when we asked about like the symptoms, the side effects of these medications, and pretty much it was not a good experience during the appointment. But the only good thing that came out of it, finally, she did offer a physician referred exercise program with the acronym PrEP, where she provided a discounted gym membership. And I was like, this is something that's needed, that I needed in the beginning, you know. So prayerfully this is also offered in other states as well. I just started it last week and it has been amazing. So definitely advocating for what you need, and also having access to like gym memberships, or just access to safe places to be active is very important while managing type 2 diabetes.
Yes, great. Thank you so much for your comment. And I'm glad that you found a program that works for you. And that's a great point. If you advocate for yourself, your provider knows that you're really trying to work towards something, and they'll be more apt to provide you with those solutions.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I do want to respect everybody's time. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up. If anybody has any further questions or comments, definitely reach out to us at info@africanamericandiabetes.org or our website, africanamericandiabetes.org. Anyone that would like to make a donation to support the African American Diabetes Association, you can do this to support our mission or to honor any loved ones that may be affected by or lost to the challenges of diabetes. You can do so using this QR code, or again at our website. We're also participating in Giving Tuesday on November 28th. So if you'd like to take that opportunity to support us, we would greatly welcome and appreciate any support that you all might provide. Again, thank you all so much for spending your evening with us. We know that your time is valuable, and we hope that you join us next week for our next seminar led by Dr. Adiola Oke. The title of that one is going to be Let's Take Our Power Back, where she'll discuss how to best engage with your healthcare professionals. She'll discuss stress management techniques, as well as managing blood sugar levels, and so much more. We hope to see you all next week, and make sure that you share this opportunity with any of your family and friends. All right, thank you all for attending. Barbara, Leon.
I think I want to just, my last words is diabetes is not an equal opportunity disease. It is not an equal opportunity disease. So we don't have the same opportunity as our counterparts, as Rock said.
And thank you. You have done an amazing job. And thank you, Eric. And thank you, obviously, Barbara and the whole team that put this together. I have one of a few words to say, and that is, it's not your fault. It's not your fault that, unfortunately, the system has created a way in which we're not getting fairly treated with our diabetes challenge. It's not our fault. But guess what? It's our opportunity to ring the bell and let folks become aware of the challenge of diabetes and what we plan to do about it. So the bottom line is, thank you, African American Diabetes Association. Thank you, Chairperson Barbara, for all the work you do. And thank you, Amber, for hosting us today on this platform. We appreciate you. Good night.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you. Everyone have a great night.
Bye.
Thank you.